It's not like any other podcast, coming to you straight from the heartland where investing is told like it is. It's time for Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. Hold on, because here comes the next episode of the Paranoid Banker Podcast.
Hey everybody, Darin Garman here, and I want to welcome you to this week's podcast. We are going to talk about two real estate markets going on right now. That's right, two. And I'm going to be referring specifically to multi-family real estate markets. All right, there's really two multifamily real estate markets going on right now. And when I say going on right now, this has actually been going on now, I want to say going on probably about 2 to 3 years. But it really did not catch much momentum until recently. Interestingly enough, right before COVID-19 and then again right after COVID-19. And I'll talk to you about why that is the case. So this is actually going to be pretty darn simple. We're not going to go into the weeds here too much. Okay? Again, we're talking about multifamily. All right? So I'm not talking about commercial or office buildings, shopping centers, those kinds of things. I'm talking specifically about multifamily. So if you own any multifamily you think you may want to own, passively, actively, whatever, small units, large units, doesn't matter the size, you're going to want to know about this information because it will affect you no matter what, okay? There's two markets right now. There's two markets for multifamily property. All right, and actually I'm going to jump into a third market, but I'll hit that here in a second. But let's just talk about the top two, the two markets. The first one is all apartment communities under 100 units. Okay, apartment communities under 100 units. Then there is the market for apartment communities above 100 units. Okay, so the market for apartment communities under 100 units, market for apartment communities above 100 units. Now what am I about to tell you, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm telling you this is the case. Okay? Here goes. I could right now, today, I could sell a 400 unit property just as quickly as I could a 4 unit property. I want you to think about that for just a second. I could sell a 400 unit property. And depending on where you're at and where your market is, this could be $20, $30, $60 million property. I could sell a 400 unit property just as fast or maybe even faster than a 4 unit property. Why is that? One word, and you know this word, demand. 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 Because there's really two markets. The market for apartment communities above 100 units and the players and owners in that game, and the market for apartment units under 100 units. Okay? It's all about demand. There is just as much demand for this as there is for this. But when you go in between these two, it starts to get a little more foggy. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. So if I have, let's say, a 48 unit property, 48 units, it's under 100, it's under 100 units, I got a 48 unit property. And let's just assume for right now, it's in a good location, it's in a good condition, it's got good tenants, they're paying rent, so let's just assume that, okay? So, it would probably take me, if I'm on the brokerage end and I'm looking at selling this, let's say for a client, because we've sold billions of dollars in apartment communities over the years, this would probably take me roughly, let's just say 60 to 120 days to sell at a price acceptable to the client. This isn't at a deep discount. This isn't fire sale. This is at market value, okay? 60 to 120 units. All right? But if I've got a 128 unit property, everything else is the same. Market, condition, tenant mix, everything. It's not a fire sale. I will sell this in less than 30 days. Less than 30 days. Why? Because now there's more players, there's more money interested in a 100 plus unit property than in a 48 unit property. Even though, standing on their own, they're probably both good properties. But here's where more of the players want to be than here. The more you go down 4 units, you got more players wanting to be here. And that makes sense. You got more people that can afford, would want to, just diving into real estate, maybe for the first time wanting something smaller. But you have just as many wanting this. But then when you start going into 48 units, 24 units, okay, 36 units. Again, is there demand for these size of communities right now? Hell yeah. Are there investors wanting to buy those? Are there investors wanting to sell those? Yes. But you now have less demand for those because you're in a market where the numbers kind of drop. So it's almost like a U kind of shape. Okay? They used to, I don't know what that, it's not really a bell curve, it's kind of just a little dip. Let's just call it a dip. Bell curve's the other way. That looks like a bell. That doesn't look like a bell. Okay? So let's just say here's 4 units here. You get down here, the demand kind of drops. Let's say you're 60 units here, and then you're 400 units here. That's a pretty damn good representation of what's going on in the market right now. 4 units, big demand, kind of dips down into the 60 unit range. There's still demand. There's still demand. But not as much, and then it goes back up into the 400 unit range. Okay? So, it's literally just like this. 4 units, 400, 60 units. There's demand all around, but that's pretty much where it is right there, guys. And here's the interesting thing. I've been doing this now over 30 years. You can tell by the gray in the beard, can't you? I got a few more wrinkles since then, too. But the bottom line is I've not seen this before. I've not seen this before. The biggest shift I've seen in 30 years has been mom and pop to investor, landlord to investor. I'm going to have another podcast about that here one of these days. That's the biggest shift I've seen in 30 years. This is number 2. This is number 2. Multiple offers for the 4 unit property. Multiple offers for the 400 unit property, maybe 1 or 2 offers for the 60 unit property. That's where we're at right now. And that's the state of the market. Okay? And so it's taking a lot of people that are in the multifamily world to catch up with this. So, and I'm not picking on lenders, but lenders don't know this right now. They're not seeing this. So when I'm talking to lenders about some of the apartment communities we're buying, some of the apartment communities that we're selling, some of the things my investors are doing, I'm kind of educating them about this. Because they don't see it. They don't really see this yet. But it affects value in a big way. Because when demand goes up, value goes up. When there's competition for something, pricing goes up. Right? And so lenders need to know about that. The other folks that are behind the curve on this are appraisers. Appraisers. Again, I'm not picking on them. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying they're behind the curve on this. And so it has a huge effect on value with larger and smaller properties. Okay? But when you get down here, a little less so. So I had a conversation with a lender, just to give you an example, about a large community here in Cedar Rapids. This community will sell for about $6.5 million, okay? $6.5 million. They ran the numbers on this, okay? They tell me they think it's worth $5.5 million, okay? $5.5 million, based on their analysis. So we're about $1 million apart. Why are we $1 million apart here? Why do you think? Because of what I just said. Because of what I just said. They're stuck at what a spreadsheet in front of them is telling them on the surface. They're not knowledgeable enough to know what's going on out there that are driving the values. Okay? And the same kind of goes for appraisers too. You're going to be seeing this more and more in markets across the U.S. I mean, if I'm seeing this in the Midwest, this is happening everywhere. Okay? And again, I'm not criticizing it on anybody, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying this is where it's going, and some folks aren't seeing this yet. Now, of course, I'm going to see it because I'm in this every day, every minute, every hour. I'm going to see it, which is why I'm having this podcast today. Okay? Then there's the third market. I said there's two markets, you know, the evolution of two markets or the evolvement of two real estate, but there's really a third. I'm just going to touch on it for just a minute. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, and it is single family. It is single family and the rolling of the dice and the gambles on single families. If you haven't done much in the terms of research or reading, you should, because there are more than a handful of large companies, I'll just say companies, whether private equity or whatever, that are buying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of single-family homes at a time. Some have been now for years. Some are just getting started. Some have tens of thousands of homes that they own and they rent out. Okay? Others, they're just getting started. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? Is it because of the income they're going to make from those single-family homes? If you said yes, you'd be wrong. Now, I'm not plugged in to the CEOs of all of these companies, but what I do know about single-family homes is your overhead is barely paid for after every month by the rental income you can get, for the most part. So, with most single-family homes that you would want to own, in an area you'd want to own them in, having the residents to live in them that you would want to have, the rent that they will be paying that you will be able to get will pay your expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance. If you got a loan payment in there, it'll pay that. Maybe take care of a few maintenance and repair items, but that's it. You're not going to get rich off of the income from those single-family homes. You're not. Where's the play on those? Where's the play on the single families? It's in the equity. And I've got another podcast where I talk about equity. But equity. Equity. They're gambling on equity, folks. That's where the gamble is. They're hoping that when they're buying it now for $180,000 a home, it's worth $420,000, 4 years from now. Okay? That's the other market that you see right now. So really, when it comes to multifamily, we have evolved into two markets. All right? Two markets. Those in kind of the 4 to 60 unit range, to 4 to 100 unit range, and the market 100 units or less, and the market's 100 units or more, and then you kind of saw my little dip here on how that works. And if you've been involved in multifamily, especially recently and in a serious way, you've seen this. Now, is this good news? Is it bad news? No, it's neither. Okay, it's really neither. But it's good for you to know how much demand you're going to have for that 60-unit property that you plan on buying. Right? How many people are going to be gunning to try to buy that? Is it a good time to sell the 60-unit property? Is it a good time to sell the 400-unit property? Well, we already know now's a great time to sell that. Now's a great time to sell that. Now might be a good time to sell that. Right? That's what we know. So we're divided into two markets there. And then you've got the knowledge part. Since a lot of people are not figuring this out yet, there's still some gaps in the market between knowing what's going on with this little diagram I've got here and what's going on with financing and appraising. I think those will catch up over time. And then there's number 3, the single-family home market. Okay, the single-family home market and what's going on there. So, as you are looking at apartment communities to buy, invest in, you're thinking about your own apartment communities, it's good to know what's going on out there with the division in the markets. Okay, division in the markets. Let me just put it to you this way. Like I said, I could sell a 4-unit property and a 400-unit property in equal period of time. It's going to take me 2 or 3 times as long for a 24-unit property, even though everything might be the same. Condition, location, tenant mix, everything. That is the state of the market. That's why we're in 2 parts, and that's the way it's evolved. And whether it's going to continue to evolve like that, we'll see. But that's where we are right now. So, I hope this information has been useful to you, give you something to think about. And as always, 2 things. Number 1, I'm always interested in your comments, questions, suggestions. So make sure you contact me with those. My contact information's everywhere. So drop me some communication. I don't care how you do it. Email. Drop me something below here in the comment section. Whatever you want to do is fine. Depending on if you're listening to me on a podcast, on audio, just get in touch with me. And my contact information is all over the place. So do that. And then number 2, we are always in the market looking to purchase multifamily communities. Okay, we sell more multifamily communities and have exposure to more multifamily communities in the state of Iowa than anybody does. Okay, and that's even the big companies. So we are the go-to folks in the state of Iowa, and the place where a lot of people like to go for their multifamily investing and information. So if you're someone we need to be talking to, you're an investor, okay? You're thinking about multifamily, actively or passively. Okay? You're already an apartment community owner. You're thinking about adding to your empire. You want to grow the empire. You're thinking about maybe refinancing, buying more. You're thinking about selling and taking advantage of some of this demand that we're talking about. You need to contact us. We are the best at this, and we would be able to be a huge, we'd be able to give you a huge advantage out there in helping you achieve your financial goals, okay, especially when it comes to using multifamily communities. All right, so have a great day, have a great week or weekend. Whenever you've watched or listened to me, we'll talk to you later. See you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com. Thanks for joining Darin Garman's Paranoid Banker Podcast. For investment questions, comments, or to get in touch with Darin, go to www.garmanblog.com.